Black people deserve reparations. Yes, I'm dead serious. I'm not just saying this because I want to own up for our history of slavery. Although that is a fine reason to say we should pay reparations, I'm saying that because America has an outstanding debt to all black Americans born in this country. We owe black people, and I'm willing to bet you all have no idea how much. So I'm going to break it down for you. I'm not making only an emotional and moral argument here. I just think it's the logical thing to do. So if you're Republican, Democrat, and especially if you're white, please hear me out. White people are the largest demographic of people that oppose reparations. So you can head into the comments and call me a white traitor or a suck up to black people or whatever you want. All I ask is that you hear me out first.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Evans Raiola. Guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch this episode. I do not take your support for granted. So far, in today's episode, we want to discuss a video done by this white guy having a lot of respect to black Americans, saying that they do deserve reparations. He says that any black American born in America, deserves to get reparations. And he says more than 90% of black folks right now in America who are born in America are actually descendants of the enslaved Africans, who are taken forcefully from Africa. In this video, he delves deeper and tries to explain why, the black folks deserve reparations. This is a very rare video. It's not every day you find a white person speaking about such a topic, and he is very, very passionate about the same. He tries to make sense with his whole situation, and I really like this video, and I thought that I should share with you guys. So fam, I want you to hear this video keenly. Once the video is done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch this together, family.
Black people deserve reparations. Yes, I'm dead serious. I'm not just saying this because I want to own up for our history of slavery. Although that is a fine reason to say we should pay reparations, I'm saying that because America has an outstanding debt to all black Americans born in this country. We owe black people, and I'm willing to bet you all have no idea how much. So I'm going to break it down for you. I'm not making only an emotional and moral argument here. I just think it's the logical thing to do. So if you're Republican, Democrat, and especially if you're white, please hear me out. White people are the largest demographic of people that oppose reparations. So you can head into the comments and call me a white traitor or a suck up to black people or whatever you want. All I ask is that you hear me out first. I'm going to break down the history of this real quick so I can make sure we're on the same page. The vast majority of African Americans that are born in America are descended from slaves. I'm talking like 90%, a massive number. African Americans were enslaved for nearly 250 years, from 1619 to 1865. Over 2 centuries that an entire race of people was enslaved, and their descendants right now are your lawyers, your law enforcement, your teachers, and yes, they were once your president. But we abolished slavery, right? So what's the problem? Bro, so much. After slaves were freed nationwide, General William Sherman met with 20 black pastors in Georgia and asked them one simple question: what do you want for your people? These pastors argued that they didn't want to live among white people because it would take years for racial prejudice to dissipate, and they wanted their own land that they can till by their own labor where they would be safe. Sherman agreed and signed Field Order 15. The order was supported by Abraham Lincoln, and it reserved 400,000 acres of land for freed slaves. That's all the way from South Carolina, like Charleston, to Florida. However, 4 months later, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and not too long after that, Abe Lincoln's replacement, Andrew Johnson, revoked the order. After it was revoked, freed black slaves were fucked. They had no money, no land, and were incredibly impoverished. Most ended up going back to working, the white man's land, and that was called sharecropping, and the conditions there were only slightly better than slavery. Some black folks became landowners, but it was incredibly rare. It makes you wonder what would have happened if Lincoln lived. The racial divide in our country would be entirely different. Slavery doesn't end with sharecropping either. Legal slavery continued until the 1930s. It was called convict leasing, and to put it simply, black folks would be arrested en masse on trumped-up charges, then have them working in the same fields in the same conditions they had as slaves. So slavery didn't end in 1865. In fact, it's not even been 100 years since slavery ended. In fact, slavery still exists in our prison system today. But I'm going off topic getting into that. What's important to remember is that we enslaved black people for centuries and had them build everything for us. And I mean literally everything. They built our roads, our buildings, our infrastructure. America is a land entirely built on slaves, and anyone who tells you different either doesn't know the truth or is lying. The Smithsonian was built by slaves. Harvard was built by slaves. The Capitol building was built by slaves. The fucking White House was built by slaves. And so much more. It's not figurative. We literally owe the black people in this country. We've got an outstanding bill to pay these people. We've said we're sorry and promised to pay multiple times, but every time we fuck these people over. We don't just owe the slaves that died, we owe their heirs. And we have paid out reparations to people before that have been damaged by things that are not their fault. And those payments go out to their heirs. Black people of today are absolutely still affected by racial injustice rooted in slavery. There is so much more to this argument, and I encourage you to learn more about the history of reparations and slavery if you're interested, but instead of focusing on that, I want to say something else. I don't think the reparations discussion will ever be solved logically. I think it will always have to come from the heart and explain why it's the right thing to do, and so I want to speak from the heart for a second. I was raised in the South, and I truly love this place. It's something that I don't talk about often because I think my friends would make fun of me for it, but I love it. I love back roads and country music and living in a small town. I love sweet tea, and I'm always blown away when I travel other places and they don't have... You know what I mean. I may not always act like it, but I really love this place. But here's the thing. I was raised to notice injustices and think critically, to respect authority, but not to revere it, not to let power get to your head and that greed will steal what truly matters to you. So why is it, when I look around at this place I love, all I see is that same greed, injustice, and unchecked authority everywhere? And it's being used to put these people down, time and time again. And I just can't shake this feeling I have deep down that we've done these people wrong. There's no two ways about it. I'm not supposed to be on this land. I am not supposed to be here because so many had to die for me to be here. And if I had to trade my existence to make those things right, I would. I don't deserve to be here, but I am. And slowly, I realized that feeling guilty about this does nothing. I'm not the one who made any of those decisions, but just like how black people have to wear the history of their ancestors on their skin, so do we. We are at fault. And that's why I think reparations is just the right fucking thing to do. And don't give me about the shit about that we can't afford it or it's not realistic. It is. So many people smarter than me have come up with plans for reparations that are realistic and affordable. It's not just about making the right decision. So many people can rest if we do this. The blood of our history can rest if we just do what's right. Thank you guys for hearing me out. Longer than usual. If you waited this long, you can head into the comments and call me a libtard if you want. And I'd love that. Peace, guys.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus 6, 1 through 5 says, "If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery when he got it by oppression or deposit that was committed to him or the lost thing that he found or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore in full and shall add a fifth to it and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day that he realizes his guilt." This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged and not just restoring what was taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25, God commands the Israelites to observe a Jubilee every 50th year, during which all debts are forgiven, all slaves to be set free, and all property to be returned to its original owners. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe paying reparations to black Americans is only a matter of justice and equity, but also it is a reflection of God's values and character. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice.
Family, I tell people from my channel, if you're a constant figure in my channel, you'll notice that I really like uploading white folks who push aside the white privilege that they have and try and command and speak against black discrimination. In America, these are figures like Tim Wise, These are people who are so passionate to discuss about issues that actually do not affect them. Look at scholars like Shahid Bolson speaking about issues that is not affecting them directly. And for that, I would always applaud them and try and appreciate them, because that is very rare. So far in this video, you notice that this guy is very passionate, you know, in regards to this topic. He tries to convince his fellow white people, you know, to acknowledge that indeed black Americans actually do deserve reparations. You know, black folks have gone through a lot in America. Talk about everything they've gone through, you know, taken from their land forcefully, ripped from their culture, taught a new language, taught a new culture, taught, you know, a different history that is not theirs, you know, forced to be after, you know, religion that is actually false. Many things that black people did were very wrong. Talk about our families being broken, our women, our sisters, our mothers being raped. Family, nothing about our history in regards to slavery is there to laugh about. And that just alone shows you why we need to be reimbursed, why we deserve reparations. Talk about any good thing you see in America today. Talk about the roads, infrastructure, buildings, innovations, all done by black folks, you know, under free labor. Low wages, free labor forcefully, man. Some of us were even being denied food. It has been a crazy history. And what I liked about this white brother is the fact that he spoke about all these details so well and tried and explained why actually black folks deserve reparations, and tried to speak to his white counterparts to stop generalizing and to stop making black folks, you know, to be people who actually do not deserve it, because he tries really hard to explain. He says that Americans have outstanding debt to all black Americans born in America. White people are the largest demographic which opposes reparations. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the guy in the video. He says that his people are the largest group of people that try to oppose reparations. Why do they want to oppose reparations? He proceeds to say that many white people have a lot of white guilt with whatever they did to the black populations, and he says it's time that they put aside the guilt that they have and actually do consider treating black folks well, do consider pushing reparations agenda for the black generations remaining right now, because they actually do deserve it. They built America. Anything nice you see in America today is as a result of black folks. And family, that deserves a lot of respect, that deserves good treatment, that does not deserve constant discrimination. It doesn't deserve continued, you know, racism that black people actually do face. Look at the employment sector. Black people are very underprivileged. Look at when you look at the black communities economically, we have a lot of pressure economically. You know, we have economical anxiety because we do not get these opportunities. Black people are still struggling even now, and they are the same people who built America. And this white brother proceeds to say that we actually deserve reparations. It's time that black people are accorded respect. He proceeds to say that a vast majority of black Americans born in America are descendants of the slave. Actually, 90% of them. Black people were enslaved for 250 years between 1619 and 1865. You know, that's a period that just shows you how, you know, the ill that black folks were put into. The free labor, imagine how crazy that was. He proceeds to say that after slaves were freed, there's this general known as General William Sherman, who asked 20 black pastors in Georgia what they wanted for blacks, and they said what they wanted was their own land, because it will take long for racial prejudice to end. You know, Sherman signed it. And with the help of this other major in the time, they were able to sign it to law. And after signing it, they signed the Field Order 15 that reserved 400,000 acres of land for freed slaves. However, 4 months later, the guy was known as Abraham Lincoln. 4 months later, Abraham Lincoln died. He was assassinated. And the one who took over as his replacement, known as Andrew Johnson, revoked the Field Order 15. That would mean in the time that black people who were accorded land, the 400,000 acres of land, they were forced to return it back. These land were given to them as reparation. They want to start as they want to start anew, because they were afraid. The 20 pastors were afraid of having to face the racial prejudices that they've been facing in America, and they were accorded 400,000 acres of land. But once Abraham Lincoln died and Andrew Johnson took over, this was revoked. And that would mean that black people who were given land, were landless, and also they were jobless. And some of them had to go back to the white farms to seek employment. And white people in the time also took advantage. The fact that the black people who are now free are going back to them. What would that mean? They'll be given low wages. If it's not low pay, if it's not low wages, it's no pay at all. Free black slaves now had no money and land. More went to work in white farms. Legal slavery continued up to the 1930s. When we say that slavery really ended in 1865, that was actually the 1865 slavery that ended was the illegal slavery. Now they wanted to put it legally now. And this was pushed up to the 1930s. It was called convict leasing, where whites enslaved blacks for centuries and held them for that long period of time after 1865, and after Abraham Lincoln had died. They now had to help these people, give them few dollars. The legal slavery now, which continued, and it was called convict leasing. Whites enslaved blacks for centuries up to the 1930s, and black people actually built everything nowadays you see in America. Talk about the Capitol buildings built by black folk. Talk about the Harvard built by black folk. Talk about the White House built by a black folk. Anything beautiful you see nowadays that was built in the days, that is actually the work of black people who are working with no pay or low wages. Family, imagine, with all that, black folks have still not been compensated. Black folk have still not received reparations. And I really, really liked the fact that our white bro, spoke about this. And he also challenges people to think about this critically and look for possible ways that black people will now start getting, these privileges, because it is unfair. It is actually very, very unfair. White or black people, he says, sorry is not enough. Telling black people sorry, that forgive us, we enslaved you, that is not enough. Black folks deserve reparation. Blacks today are still suffering from racial injustice, rooted to the days of slavery. Then how do you come and tell the same people sorry without having to compensate them? Guys, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about the white guy in the video who's really, really tried so much to try and explain to his people why black folks really do deserve reparations. Family, seeing these, I am just emotional seeing a white guy do it. This just feels like the world is ending, because it's rare for you to see that happen. Guys, like this video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users, and I'll be very grateful. Lastly, kindly do consider subscribing to the channel. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate if you share the video. Thank you, and see you all in our next episode. Goodbye for now.